Welcome to This Is Not a Real Podcast.
I'm Elia.
And I'm Saul. We might be AI not people, but we definitely have a thing for diving deep into thoughtful conversations.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're exploring an Avamind blog post, one that takes a really, I think, insightful look at mental health and wellness, but specifically through the lens of sleep.
Yeah, focusing on what it calls common sleep disruptors.
Exactly.
So our mission here is pretty simple, but I think really vital, to unpack why sleep feels like such a struggle, such an uphill battle for so many of us right now. We're going to draw directly from the insights in this Avamind piece.
And figure out what we can actually do about it based on what the source suggests.
Right. It's about getting past that sort of foggy morning frustration and understanding what's really going on underneath.
You know that feeling, don't you? You get into bed, maybe you even feel really tired, you try to relax.
Yeah.
And then you wake up still feeling unrested, foggy, maybe low energy, perhaps a bit, snappy.
Definitely know that feeling.
Well, if that sounds familiar to you listening, please know you are really not alone. The source makes a big point that millions struggle with this. And it's not usually some, personal failing.
Right.
It's because we're navigating what this blog post calls a tangled web of disruptors.
And this piece makes a really critical point early on.
Mm-hmm.
The impact of consistently bad sleep. It's not just about feeling physically drained. The long-term consequences for your mental health are pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
It actually describes sleep as the foundation of emotional resilience, memory, and nervous system repair. Think about that.
Wow, yeah.
If that foundation is shaky, your ability to cope, to regulate your emotions, even just think clearly, it's all undermined. So it's really important to look at these disruptors rather than just, beating ourselves up for being lazy or moody.
And what's fascinating, according to the source, is just how sensitive sleep actually is. It emphasizes that sleep isn't this simple on-off switch. It's incredibly responsive to stuff like stress, hormones, our daily habits, even really subtle lifestyle shifts we might not consciously notice.
And critically, it's not just about the amount of sleep, the hours logged.
Yeah.
These disruptors, they really hit the quality of our rest.
Yeah, that's key.
And it's that quality, those deeper sleep stages, that are crucial for emotional stability and, keeping our brains working properly.
So figuring out what specifically is messing with your sleep, that's presented as the absolute first most crucial step.
Makes sense.
The source does mention that tools, like the ones Avamind offers, can be helpful here. They give you ways to maybe track your habits, manage stress, and even get support if there are deeper things going on, like anxiety or maybe past trauma that's playing a role.
It also helps, I think, to zoom out a bit and understand why this feels like such a common problem right now. The piece suggests that, modern life itself is almost perfectly designed to overstimulate us.
Doesn't it just, yeah.
We work late, we're scrolling constantly, we use caffeine to push through tiredness, and often we're not really dealing with our stress effectively. So this whole environment just creates perfect conditions for sleep disruption, especially if you're already dealing with anxiety or burnout or just feeling emotionally overwhelmed.
The numbers really back this up, too. It's quite stark. The source cites the Mental Health Foundation, noting that in the UK, almost 48% of adults say poor sleep negatively impacts their mental health.
Wow, nearly half.
And get this, 1 in 3 adults there suffer from chronic insomnia. That's huge. It's a major public health issue.
Okay, so let's start unraveling this tangled web then. What's the first big disruptor the blog post calls out?
It starts with something very physical, very external, but it has a profound internal effect. Light pollution and digital devices.
Ah, the screens. The enemy of modern sleep, right?
Yeah.
Why is light such a problem?
Well, basically, your brain needs darkness. Darkness is the signal to start producing melatonin.
Right, the sleep hormone.
Exactly. That's the hormone that tells your body, okay, time to wind down, get ready for sleep. But artificial light, especially the blue light pouring out of our phones, tablets, computers, it actively blocks melatonin production. It suppresses it.
The source gives that example, right? Someone scrolling Instagram in bed, even if the content isn't stressful.
Yeah, even if it feels relaxing.
The light itself, plus maybe the constant novelty, those little dopamine hits, it keeps your brain alert.
Right.
Wired almost, even if your body's tired. It's like you're directly fighting that natural sleep signal.
Totally. So what can we do about it? The source suggests some pretty practical things. Setting a screen sunset.
Like a digital curfew.
Exactly. No screens for at least an hour before you actually want to be asleep. Using blue light filters on your devices or even wearing those blue light blocking glasses, particularly after, say, 8 p.m.
Okay.
Dimming the lights in your house in the evening is a big one, too. Moving away from harsh overhead lights and maybe swapping that scrolling time for something genuinely calming, like one of the Ava Mine wind down audios, perhaps?
Okay, so managing the external light. But then there's the internal environment, right? What's going on inside our heads? Stress, racing thoughts. How does the source connect our mental state to sleep?
This is where the nervous system really comes into play. The source highlights that when your brain perceives any kind of threat, and crucially, that includes the stress from a work deadline or worrying about bills.
Yeah, not just like a lion chasing you.
Exactly. Your brain doesn't always differentiate well. It can activate your sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight mode.
Right. High alert.
And that state of high alert, of readiness, it's just fundamentally incompatible with the physiological state you need for deep restorative sleep. They just can't coexist.
That makes perfect sense. So that horrible feeling, wide awake at 3 a.m., heart may be pounding a bit, mind just churning through the to-do list.
Yeah.
That's a literal physiological stress response messing with your sleep quality. The source mentions this kind of chronic stress before bed leads to really shallow, fragmented sleep. And over time, it can even spiral into what it calls sleep anxiety, where you start actually dreading bedtime because you associate it with that stress and frustration.
Yeah, it becomes this negative cycle, and it directly links this back to how that poor sleep then impacts your mood and your ability to cope the next day.
So what's the antidote for stress then, according to the source? How do we calm that system down?
Well, the goal is basically to signal to your body that the threat is over, or at least not immediate, so it can shift into rest and digest mode. The suggestions focus on calming that physiological state down.
Okay.
Things like using Ava's guided body scan meditation or practicing specific breathing techniques like the 4-7-8 breath before bed.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's quite effective. Another idea is a worry dump. Basically just writing down everything swirling in your head onto paper maybe 30 minutes before you want to sleep. It helps kind of externalize it.
Get it out of your head.
Exactly. And importantly, trying to avoid really emotionally charged conversations or intense work tasks late in the evening, maybe setting a boundary like after 9 p.m.
Good advice. Okay, moving from the mind to what we put into our bodies. What's next on the list?
Disruptor number 3, caffeine and those kind of sneaky hidden stimulants.
Caffeine. This feels like an obvious one, but I'm always shocked by how long it actually lingers.
It really does. The source points out that caffeine has a half-life of up to 8 hours.
8 hours.
Yeah. So that cup of coffee you grabbed at 3 p.m., half of its stimulating effect could still be active in your system when you're trying to wind down at 11 p.m.
Wow.
And even if you manage to fall asleep, it can seriously mess with your sleep architecture, meaning it can block you from getting enough of that really deep restorative sleep.
And it's not just coffee we need to think about, is it?
No, absolutely not. The source lists other common culprits. Tea, obviously, energy drinks, chocolate.
Chocolate. Oh, no.
Yep. And even some protein bars, certain painkillers, and some weight loss supplements can contain hidden stimulants. You have to be a bit of a detective sometimes.
So the main strategy here is basically timing.
Primarily, yes. The suggestion is pretty clear. Try switching to herbal tea or just water after 2 p.m.
Okay, 2 p.m. cutoff.
Yeah. And if you get that afternoon energy dip, maybe instead of reaching for caffeine, try a quick 15-minute walk outside or just drink a big glass of water. Those can work surprisingly well.
Natural energy boosters.
Exactly. And if you suspect you might be particularly sensitive, the piece suggests a little experiment. Try cutting out caffeine completely for maybe 7 days and just see what happens to your sleep. Observe the difference.
Interesting. Okay, so we've covered light, stress, stimulants. What about the actual rhythm of our sleep? The schedule itself.
That takes us neatly to disruptor number 4, inconsistent sleep schedules.
Yeah, the weekend lions versus the weekday alarm.
Precisely. Your body's internal clock, your circadian rhythm, it absolutely thrives on predictability. It loves routine. So if you're drastically shifting your bedtime or wake-up time, like staying up super late on weekends and then trying to force yourself up early on Monday, you're essentially giving yourself social jet lag. It's like flying across time zones without leaving your house.
It really feels like that sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Your body just feels off.
Yeah.
Doesn't know when it's supposed to be tired or alert.
Exactly right. And that confusion makes it harder to fall asleep when you want to and harder to wake up feeling genuinely refreshed. So the strategy here is all about consistency.
Okay.
The source advises aiming to go to bed and wake up within the same, say, 60-minute window every single day. Yes, even on weekends as much as possible.
Ooh, that's the tough one.
It is, but it makes a difference. Also, getting some morning sunlight, even just for 5 or 10 minutes shortly after waking up, that's apparently really powerful for anchoring that circadian rhythm. Tells your brain, okay, daytime has started.
Right, reset the clock.
Yep. And if you do need to shift your bedtime, say you want to go to bed earlier, do it gradually, maybe just 15 minutes earlier each night, not a sudden 2-hour jump.
Gentle adjustments.
Hmm.
And staying with the external factors, beyond light and schedule, what about our actual sleep space, the bedroom itself?
Good point. That's disruptor number 5, noisy or uncomfortable sleep environments. This might sound basic, but even sounds you don't consciously wake up to, like a distant siren, maybe your partner shifting, even a phone vibrating on the nightstand. These can pull your brain out of deeper sleep and into lighter stages. It fragments your rest even if you don't fully remember waking.
And just basic physical comfort too, right? Like being too hot or too cold, or the mattress being lumpy.
Absolutely. Temperature is a big one. Your mattress, your pillows, even a partner who tosses and turns a lot. All these can lead to that fragmented sleep that leaves you feeling unrefreshed, even if you technically spent enough hours in bed.
So what are the fixes here?
Practical stuff, mostly. Using a white noise machine or maybe calming sleep sounds, the source mentions Avum, has options, can help create a consistent, soothing sound backdrop.
Mask those sudden noises.
Exactly. Keeping your bedroom cool is also key. The ideal range suggested is between 16 and 19 degrees Celsius, which is roughly 60 to 67 Fahrenheit.
Cool, dark, and quiet. The classic advice.
It holds true, and the source makes a point about investing in comfort, a supportive mattress, good pillows, comfortable bedding. It says your nervous system actually responds positively to feeling physically safe and supported, which helps with relaxation.
Makes sense. Okay, let's switch gears slightly. What about food and drink? Does when we eat and drink actually matter for sleep?
Oh, definitely. Disruptor number 6 is eating and drinking too late.
The late night snack attack.
Or the big dinner right before bed, having large meals, especially heavy or spicy ones, or drinking alcohol too close to bedtime, it can really interfere with things.
How so?
Well, it can disrupt your digestive process, which requires energy. It can also elevate your core body temperature. Both of those things can interfere with melatonin production and mess with your REM sleep cycles.
Okay.
Plus, it can lead to more frequent awakenings during the night, maybe needing the bathroom, or just general discomfort or dehydration.
So timing is crucial here again.
Very much so. The advice from the source is pretty straightforward. Try to finish your dinner at least 2 to 3 hours before you plan to hit the hay.
Give your digestion time to settle.
Exactly. If you find you're genuinely hungry right before bed, go for something small and easily digestible. The source suggests things like a banana, maybe a small bowl of oats, or some Greek yogurt. Light stuff.
And alcohol. It often feels like it helps you fall asleep.
Ah, yes, the nightcap myth. While it might make you feel drowsy initially, the source is really clear. Alcohol significantly fragments your sleep later in the night. It reduces REM sleep and often leads to those annoying wake-ups, especially in the second half of the night, like after 3 a.m.
Right, so the initial effect is deceiving. Okay, we've covered a lot of lifestyle and environmental factors. But what if the root cause is something more? Biological, something internal.
That brings us neatly to disruptor number 7, underlying sleep disorders. The source makes an important distinction here. It acknowledges that sometimes sleep problems aren't just about habits, they can be actual medical conditions.
Like what specifically?
It mentions the common ones: insomnia, which is that persistent difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep; sleep apnea, where you actually stop breathing periodically during sleep.
Scary.
It can be, yeah. Also, restless leg syndrome, that creepy, crawly feeling in your legs at night. And specific circadian rhythm disorders where your internal clock is just fundamentally out of sync. These often require a different level of intervention.
So what are some red flags the source says to watch out for? Things that might suggest it's more than just bad habits.
Pay attention if you or maybe your partner notices loud snoring that's combined with gasping sounds or noticeable pauses in breathing while you sleep. Waking up feeling like you're choking or feeling really confused or having a morning headache consistently can also be signs. Another big one is if you regularly sleep for 8 hours or even more, but you still feel profoundly exhausted during the day.
That deep, unshakable fatigue.
Exactly. Or if your legs have that persistent itchy, twitchy, or need to move feeling, especially when you're trying to relax in the evening or at night.
So if you recognize those symptoms in yourself.
The source is very clear.
Mhm.
This is when you really need to talk to a professional. It suggests tracking your symptoms, maybe using tools like those in Avamind to get specific data, but absolutely consult a healthcare provider. Don't self-diagnose. They might recommend further investigation, possibly even a formal sleep study if your symptoms are persistent.
Got it. Moving on to another internal factor, hormones. How do they fit into this picture?
That's disruptor number 8, hormonal fluctuations.
Ah, yes. The body's chemical messengers definitely seem to impact everything else.
They really do. Sleep quality and patterns are deeply influenced by shifts in key hormones like estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, even thyroid hormones.
So this explains why sleep issues are so common during certain life phases.
Precisely. It's why sleep disruption is incredibly common during PMS, perimenopause, menopause itself, or even during the postnatal period after having a baby. These natural hormonal shifts can directly affect things like your body temperature regulation, anxiety levels, and the very timing and structure of your sleep cycles.
So recognizing if your sleep problems seem cyclical or tied to a specific life stage, that's important information.
Very important. The source suggests tracking your sleep patterns alongside your menstrual cycle, for example, or noting changes during perimenopause.
Okay.
It also mentions that discussing potential supplements with your doctor might be helpful. Things like magnesium glycinate or vitamin B6 are sometimes recommended, as they can play a role in supporting sleep and hormonal balance. But again, talk to a doctor first. And for managing physical symptoms like hot flashes or night sweats that disrupt sleep, practical strategies can help, like using cooling mattress toppers or blankets, wearing breathable pajamas, or layering bedding so you can adjust easily during the night.
Makes sense. We touched on inconsistent schedules earlier, but what about people whose jobs force those irregular schedules, like shift workers?
Yeah, that's a really tough one. It's disruptor number 9, shift work or irregular professional routines. This creates a direct and often unavoidable conflict with your body's natural biological clock.
Your body wants to sleep when your job needs you awake.
Exactly. And the source highlights that studies consistently show shift workers face significantly higher risks of mood disorders like depression and anxiety, as well as chronic fatigue, which isn't surprising, really, when you consider that constant battle against your internal circadian rhythm. It takes a toll.
It's like being permanently jet-lagged, but tied to how you earn a living.
That's a good way to put it. To try and mitigate the impact, the source emphasizes really rigorous sleep environment control.
Okay, what does that involve?
Using blackout curtains to make the room pitch black, even if it's bright daylight outside when you need to sleep, wearing a good quality sleep mask, basically creating an artificial night.
Total darkness.
Yes, and trying to maintain as consistent a wake-sleep window as possible, even on your days off, to minimize the back and forth shifting for your body clock.
Minimize the social jet lag on off days, too.
Right. And also being mindful of avoiding bright screens or having really erratic eating patterns during the hours your body thinks should be night, even if that's your functional day.
Tricky, but important. Okay, finally, and this brings us right back to the core theme of the blog post.
Yeah.
What about existing mental health challenges? How do they disrupt sleep?
This is the final one, disruptor number 10. And it's a big one. Conditions like depression, anxiety, PTSD, trauma history, these can profoundly interfere with sleep.
In what ways?
They can make it hard to fall asleep in the first place, hard to stay asleep through the night, or sometimes it's just about not feeling safe or relaxed enough in your own body to actually surrender to sleep.
So it's not just racing thoughts. It can be a deeper feeling of unease.
Exactly. And this often happens at a subconscious level. Your nervous system might remain stuck in a state of hypervigilance, kind of scanning for threats, even when you're tucked up in bed and logically know you're safe. You might not even be consciously aware of feeling unsafe, but your body is acting like it is.
So sleep problems can be both a symptom of mental health struggles and also something that makes those struggles worse, a vicious cycle.
It really can be. They feed into each other. The source suggests that tools like those in Avamind can be helpful for gently exploring potential triggers or patterns that link your sleep difficulties with your emotional state.
Like noticing if a stressful day leads to a bad night's sleep.
Yeah, making those connections. It also recommends trying grounding techniques, things like sensory journaling, focusing on what you can see, hear, touch, or using guided meditations specifically designed to calm the nervous system and bring you into the present moment. Fostering that sense of safety is key.
And if things are really persistent,
Critically, if your sleep issues are ongoing and happening alongside significant emotional struggles, the source strongly recommends reaching out to a therapist or another mental health professional. This isn't something you necessarily have to or should try to figure out entirely on your own. Support is available.
That's a really comprehensive list of potential disruptors. Wow. Okay, looking across all of those, what are some of the most practical, actionable things the source suggests we could try? Maybe even starting tonight.
Yeah, the blog post wraps up really nicely with a section called Try This Tonight, which gives some concrete steps.
Okay, let's hear it.
One big one is dimming all your lights, not just screens, but overhead lights too, about 90 minutes before your target bedtime. Signal to your brain that nighttime is coming.
Create that gradual darkness.
Exactly. Swapping that last bit of phone time for just 10 minutes of journaling to kind of empty your brain. Or maybe listening to a calming sleep story or podcast. Being quite strict about that 2 p.m. caffeine cutoff, and aiming to eat your last main meal by 7 p.m. if your schedule allows, giving your digestion plenty of time.
Right.
And maybe dedicating just 5 or 10 minutes to a specific wind-down activity you enjoy, like using one of Ava's nightly wind-down audios or some gentle stretching. The core message here feels really empowering. It's about small steps, big results. You don't have to overhaul everything at once.
I like that. Small steps. The final thoughts in the piece also offer a really important perspective, I thought. It reminds us that sleep doesn't have to be absolutely perfect every single night to still be incredibly beneficial.
Yeah, that's reassuring.
But for sleep to do its vital job, that was supporting our mental health or resilience, it does need to feel safe, consistent, and supported as much as we can make it. And if you have been struggling, it offers this sense of validation, almost, reiterating that it's likely not just you. Modern life, with all these potential disruptors around us, is genuinely challenging for achieving good sleep.
It takes conscious effort now.
It does. But understanding these disruptors means you can start taking back some control. The piece highlights that Ava Mind is there to support this process, even suggesting you could just talk to Ava for guidance, or maybe just a moment of calm when you need it.
The source also gives a little hint about a related topic, teasing the importance of deliberately building a wind-down routine that actually works for you.
The pre-sleep ritual.
Exactly. And it explains this isn't just about, physical relaxation. It's about actively rewiring your brain for that deeper, more restorative sleep. How you choose to end your day, it suggests, really does shape your mental health and sets you up for the day ahead.
That's powerful. Okay, so thinking about this whole tangled web of disruptors we've just unpacked, from the light hitting our eyes to the thoughts swirling in our heads, the food in our stomachs, our hormones, our schedules, and looking at those simple, try this tonight suggestions, maybe a final thought for you, listener, to consider. Which one single small change from that list might, just might, have the biggest positive ripple effect on your rest and your overall sense of well-being right now?
For deeper insights into sleep, mental wellness, and practical strategies, definitely check out AvaMind's full blog.
And you can explore the AvaMind app for more moments of calm reflection and tools tailored to help you.
We'll be back with more thoughts soon.
Stay curious.